and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. Today is the second Sunday after Christmas, and so we're still in the Christmas season. Christmas season ends Epiphany, which is the service tomorrow night, just so you know, 7 p.m. And during this time of Christmas, during these weeks of Christmas, our focus, our interest, is learning about the Christ who has come to us. Our focus and our interest is learning about the Word who became flesh. Our focus and our interest is hearing and working through and meditating upon and understanding all of these original stories about Christ as an infant, as a young person, prior to his baptism, the baptism of our Lord. When we look at these stories, when we look at these records given to us in the Scriptures, most of them, in fact all of them really are Matthew and Luke. I mean, John has something which we hear Christmas Day, but that's theological commentary, that's theological explanation. It's not the details of his life. In Matthew and Luke, we have these particular details. They start with Luke chapter 2 and his birth, which comes to us in Bethlehem. That's the first day. On the 8th day, we have his circumcision, the first shedding of blood and fulfillment of the law, the giving of the name. The name is Jesus, for he will save his people. You have the presentation in the temple on the 40th day. That's also a fulfillment of the law because he's the first to open the womb. A sacrifice is required. You have the visit of the wise men, the Magi. You have the going to Egypt, the return from Egypt. And then finally, today's reading, Jesus in Jerusalem at 12 years old during the Passover. Now, whenever we have this reading, or whenever I come across it, when we're studying Matthew or something like that, I come across it, I always think that the 12 years old here, this has to be related to something like the bar mitzvah. Do you know the bar mitzvah? Yes? I mean, for folks who are Jewish, it's more or less their version of confirmation, where they learn certain kinds of things, and they're being promoted from a young person to an adult. After the bar mitzvah, they are considered a male in the congregation in terms of elders and those sorts of things. They can read from the scrolls and do all the things required of a male. So this 12 years old of life in this bar mitzvah, which is around 13, is close enough, right? I think that's what this is about. Jesus has been bar mitzvah. He's now a son of the promise, and he makes his first journey to Jerusalem for the Passover. But you know, I'm not so sure about that, so you don't have to. 12 years old, 13 years old, it seems close enough to me, I'm not sure. But the main point here, the real point, the reason why Luke has included this particular reading in the gospel, why God has included it, is not really because of the bar mitzvah, but because of Jesus. Because here you have God and man in the one person, Jesus Christ. Here you have the Messiah who has been sent to us, the Christ who has been sent to us, who has a purpose in his life, namely to forgive us, to redeem us from our sins. And now you have this 12-year-old boy for the first time going from, at least the first recorded time, going from Nazareth in Galilee, going as was the custom to Jerusalem during the Passover. And this is all in anticipation of what his life would be like when he goes there 21 years down the road. You think of it. Here you have Jesus, here you have him as the Messiah, here you have him in Jerusalem during the time of the Passover. This is all foreshadowing. This is all laying the path in the direction of this same Jesus will grow up, this same Jesus will become rabbi, this same Jesus will have an earthly ministry. But in the end, he will go to Jerusalem. In the end, he will go to the cross. In the end, he will give his life, his blood, his body, all for the forgiveness of our sins. And now that's a lot to say about a 12-year-old boy who's off on a journey with his parents going to the big city. Well, they go to that city, which is Jerusalem. They observe the Passover. They observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the 7 days. They pack up their belongings. They pack up their friends. They get in the caravan. And what do? They head home. Well, on that first night, as they stop, they pull over to the side of the road, so to speak, and they make their camp, right? They're done for the day. They're going to have something to eat, and then they're going to get up in the morning, and they're going to finish their journey back to Galilee. It's there as they're sorting things out, counting noses, counting heads, doing that sort of thing. It dawns on them, they figure it out. You know what? We have everything. We have the spoons, we have the knives, we have the sleeping bags, we have everything. But what we do not have is we do not have Jesus, right? Well, if you're the mother of Jesus and you've lost Jesus, I don't know what you think of that. That's a bad thing. If you're the protector of Jesus, the adoptive parent of Jesus, namely Joseph, and you've lost Jesus, the Messiah, this is definitely a bad thing. So what happens here is they realize, look, he's not with us. He must be back there or somewhere along the way. So it's one day out, it's one day back, and then on the third day, they get to Jerusalem, and they begin their search. Now here's the thing. Any one of us who are parents, or really anybody just thinking through this, is going to say, you have a lost person, what do we know about that person? So we might go to those places where they might be found. You know what I mean? So, Jesus being 12 years old, they might think that Jesus has gone to the waterside park, or something like that. Or that Jesus has gone to the Whataburger, that's where all the teens hang out in this particular town. Or Jesus has gone to wherever it happens to be. But what they do not put into their minds is that Jesus must be in the place where he is, which is the temple itself. And so it says here that they look and they look and they look, and only eventually, only finally do they come to the temple, and only finally then do they find the Son, do they find Jesus, the Messiah. Now, quite interesting here is what do they observe? By the way, if you look at the picture at the front of the bulletin, it has all this nicely laid out in picture format. What you have there is Jesus being found in the temple, not hiding on the outside or not sneaking around like a young person might be doing, but rather Jesus who is sitting among the scribes, Jesus who is sitting among the religious teachers there, and seated is the big deal here, talking with them, asking questions, answering questions, right? Interacting with the teachers of the law, interacting with rabbis like Hillel and Gamaliel, and people like this. And everybody who hears this, and everybody who sees this, and everybody who hears Jesus' words and his answers and his questions and his interaction, what are they all together? Amazed. And it's not simply the kind of amazement that we have as pastors when we teach catechism class and somebody gets the question right and they're doing a great job. Right? It's not the precocious, hey, he's a smart kid kind of a thing. This is an otherworldly kind of intelligence in our midst. This is a person who knows things that certainly shouldn't know these kinds of things. After all, he's only 12 years old. Here is a person who is sitting with the great leaders and teachers of the faith in Jerusalem, in the temple, asking questions and answering questions, because not only is he their equal, he's what? He is their superior. He is their God. He is the Word who is made flesh, who is now among them and teaching them. Well, equally amazed is Mary. They found him, thanks be to God, for sure. But equally amazed are Mary and Joseph now, who are observing this thing, observing this interaction, observing this kind of dialogue that Jesus is participating in. She breaks out and says to Jesus, asks Jesus, what we say, where have you been? Right? Or what are you doing? Why weren't you with us? I mean, this is the kind of thing that's in the motherly question of, or the motherly statement of, don't you know that we have been looking for you and we are terrified. We have been afraid because of your absence. Where have you been? Well, when I hear this question, and maybe it's from personal experience, it sounds like Mary's almost accusing Jesus of sin, of breaking the fourth commandment, of not showing proper respect for mother and for father in particular here. But Jesus is no sinner, as we know. And while there isn't going to be a confession of sin, there's definitely going to be an explanation, and this is what we're here to hear. In Jesus' explanation to Mary as to what he is doing in the temple, he simply says this: why were you seeking me? You went to the waterside park, right? You went to the Whataburger, you went to the beach, you went to any number of places where I was not to be found. And there's a reason for that. Because when I come, the Messiah, 12 years old, to Jerusalem, And when I come to Jerusalem during the time of the Passover, don't you know, mother, and don't you know, father, that I had to be in my true father's house, namely the temple? Don't you know, mother and father, with all due respect, without any sin, that when the Messiah comes to Jerusalem, he has to be about his father's business and nothing else? If you want to look, you should have come here first. That's just simply the way it is. Well, after this, the amazement is still held by all. Answering questions, explaining why he's there, explaining who he is. All of these kinds of things are things which Mary has treasured in her hearts, and which we too now treasure in our own hearts. Because we often think at things like a 12-year-old boy or a 12-year-old girl and say, oh, they're just children. They don't have real responsibilities. They're not adults yet. You know, what can they do? But when you look at the 12-year-old boy in the temple in Jerusalem, what you are seeing, who you are seeing, is the Messiah who was sent to us. The one who was put into human flesh, God in human flesh, with purpose, with end, with intention, that would all be fulfilled in Jerusalem. And the same 12-year-old boy that we see today is the one we will see at a later date. He is the one who fulfills the law on our behalf entirely. He is the one who satisfies the debt of sin by way of his death entirely. He is the one who comes to us now by way of his body and blood, or the word, or baptism itself, and brings to us and grants to us all of the gifts and all of the blessings that he was sent to secure, namely forgiveness, namely life, namely salvation, namely the deliverance from our sins, namely the deliverance from sin, death, and the devil. All of these things are now ours because of the Christ who was sent to us. And it's that Christ that we read about in the scriptures today. It's that Christ that we see in the temple on this day, interacting with the teachers, asking questions, and most importantly, answering questions. So this will be the last Sunday of Christmas. Merry Christmas. And the great blessing and the great gift which we have received during this Christmas season is this Christ, this Savior, this Redeemer. And for this we offer our thanks. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.